the Music Entrepreneur Club has gone through a few different iterations, and it was born out of the ashes of Funk Volume because I felt like one of the reasons that Hop and I butted heads is just he just didn't understand the business.
Okay.
And I always tell artists, man, it's super important to understand the business, not for so that you can make the right moves,
Yes.
for sure, but you can also like properly value the people around you.
And their time.
Yeah, because if you don't know the business, you might think that any manager will work or any publicist will work.
Yeah.
Everybody's just plug and play.
Yeah, that's not
You know what
that's
I'm
not the
saying?
case, especially at the manager level.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially
So
at the partner level, like
yeah,
for a label, a small independent label like that.
so it's super important to learn the business so that you can build your team the right way. You can ask the right questions, come up with the right strategy. So that I've just been, and I didn't feel like anybody was having the type of conversations we have, right? Like you can get the Donald Passman book or whatever, but when and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, you should read that,
Yeah, yeah.
but you should also listen to your experience. Like artists should listen to your experience because there's a lot of shit that won't be in that book,
Yeah,
right? In terms of
that's true.
how to manage expectations, what happens when you go on tour, like there's just so much stuff that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that's not just like your what is publishing, what is a mechanical royalty. Like that's know that too for sure, but at the end of the day we're dealing with people and people sometimes are hard to deal with.
Yep.
And I just wasn't prepared for some of the personalities. I come from the corporate world where people are on time, people are professional. If you're not, you're fired. It's in this industry we get extra points for being.
It's expected.
Yeah, we get extra points for showing up on time. Oh wow, you're on time. Like what are you talking about? Of course I'm on time. I do like that's everybody should be on time.
Yeah.
So it's just a different industry, and it took me a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
But nobody's gonna have that conversation in the Donald Passman book.
Right. Right. At what point did you start to kind of say like, because maybe in the beginning of your career, because you're coming from corporate, you're trying to like you're fighting against this maybe, right?
Yeah.
This idea of like, no, let's just be more structured. Maybe I'm assuming, I don't know. At what
Yeah.
point did you start to say, okay, I got to roll with this because?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were in Canada because that's how it was. Like when we had a show,
Shout out Canada.
and I wanted the guys to like be at the sound check,
Yeah.
and then we were at the sound check, and the venue wasn't even at the sound check. So I kept wanting to just present, like kind of not be perfect, but I eventually had to relax and be like, okay, so sometimes other people aren't going to be professional, and
Yeah.
us showing up to a meeting on time. I still think that's important for sure. Meetings for sure, but like I could scale back a little bit and not be so like militant in my approach. Just relax. Keep. I don't want to butt heads with the artist over stupid things.
Yeah, that's the man. I think you just said it right there, man. Because I think like one of the most important things in this business is picking your battles, especially with the artists
Yeah.
that you work with.
Yep, for sure.
You know,
For sure.
there's always like, because it's such a close relationship, and you're gonna spend a lot of time with these people, and that means that you're eventually going to get into conflict. I don't care who it is.
It's a lot.
It's a reality.
Yeah, it's a lot of. You definitely have to pick and choose your battles because there's going to be a lot of them. Like if you wanted to fight them all, you're gonna get tired.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
get tired for sure.
And when you're younger, you have the energy to do that. You know what I mean? But it's like it's better to figure out how to make sure that you're getting on the same page. And the arguments that you do get into should be with the end goal of making the business better. And whether that means it could be a multitude of things, I think. Like even like if it makes the artist's life better, if it's easier for them to travel, if it's, okay, cool, get an assistant, get an EA or whatever it is. Yes, you have to pay out of pocket from this, but you know what, we could find somebody good, and guess what? If somebody's really good assistant, they're going to give you back so much of your time. So it's worth it,
Yeah.
right? Things like that. And then it's like, well, as the manager or somebody at the label would be like, well, we'll communicate with that assistant to ensure that they're on point. You don't always have to be talking. It's a good expense, right? Just kind of things like that. Like even it's for the artist, because at the end of the day, I do understand the artist is the end product. They're the ones that are in front of the camera. They're the ones that got to take the blows like publicly if there's issues, more times than not, right? they're the ones that are going to get all the success, and everybody's going to be pulling at them for everything.
Yep.
Meet and greets. It gets
Yeah.
hectic for them, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely want to build a good business around and structure around the artist so they can continue to grow and be healthy
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And all of what you said again is not going to be in a book, or not going to
Yeah.
be in the Donald Passman book, at least. There
Yeah.
might be some other book written now that's,
Yeah.
you know, this more just from 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 somebody that like it deals with this on a day to day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
How important is it though to ensure that the executives and the managers are also of good state of mind?
Well, we didn't have like that was one of the mistakes that I made because it was really just me
Okay.
and the artist. And then I mean, eventually we signed a deal with Warner, so they were like a partner, and I could lean on them for some things. But internally, like Funk Volume,
Yeah.
there were no other executives, and that's where I probably could have hired like a strong number two,
Okay.
so that it wasn't always my voice that was interacting with them.
Falls on
'Cause,
deaf ears
yeah,
sometimes.
because I think sometimes you just get tired of the voice, no matter what it's saying.
100. Yeah.
You know, even if it's, and I'm always, you know, have good intentions, and it's always, you know, it's always something like you said to push the business forward. But you know, when you keep hearing my voice, and I understand that my voice is not, it's kind of high pitched at times. Like you just get tired of the voice. It's like, hey, and so artists may be slow to
Don't
pick up
matter.
yeah, it might be slow to pick up the phone. It's like, oh, that's Dame again. You know, he's probably gonna want something. You
Or
know what I
yell
mean?
at me or get
Yeah.
mad at me about something.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, there's probably should have been a
It's true.
strong number two to, even if it was to communicate something that I need them.
Yeah.
Just going through a number two would have probably, it wouldn't have. I think eventually would have crashed and burned anyway, but it might have delayed it for like a year or two. You
Fair
know.
enough.
So
No, I know what you mean because even with Byron, like he doesn't get nearly enough credit as he deserves for the role that he played in growing the career of Jesse because he's a really good dude, but he's just very calm and patient and an amazing communicator. And Jesse and I are both Colombian. So when there's an argument, those are two Colombians arguing.
right.
So it would be like, ah, man, I don't even want to talk right now because it's too much. Be like Byron. He'd go in and have the conversation with Jesse just to like communicate it properly and she would hear it better. Right.
Was the decision to bring on Byron something you suggested or
Yeah,
something Jesse
I suggested it.
But I think I think it's dope that you were the one to suggest that because, you know, typically a lot of times that comes from the artist, right? And then the manager has to hear that they bring it on someone else, and now you split my commission in half?
Yeah,
Like, how does that make sense?
yeah.
Why? I mean, I hate to turn this interview back on you. You
No, but
probably,
this is what you do.
and you probably explained it hella times in other episodes, but like,
Not necessarily. That's a good question.
why were you comfortable doing it? How did you feel like bringing that person on was going to grow the pie to the point where you're actually going to make money in the long run?
That's a fire question. You know why? Because there was a stalemate whenever there was conflict between Jesse and myself. Couldn't move the needle. And I knew Byron from a long time from the music video space because my production company was doing all the music videos for the other artist that he started with, this artist named Sunreal. You might be familiar with Sunreal.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah,
It
because
sounds
he's
super familiar.
same era as Hobson.
Yeah, it sounds super familiar.
Yeah. So I knew that Byron was really good. And when we were doing these videos, we were talking about strategy, we were talking about music, we were talking about creative, all kinds of shit. I was just like, no, I had an opportunity at the production company to work with a lot of artists and a lot of managers and a lot of labels. And I hate to say it, but like 85 to 90% of them were not good. They just weren't good managers.
Yeah, it's hard to find a good man. I mean, it's hard to find a good artist, but it's hard to find, especially because the good ones are getting chased out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was one of the good ones. He was really solid. So I always hit him up for, just to kind of get advice and stuff like, and I managed her for a year, but yeah, it was having Byron around was really good in terms of being like a tiebreaker, but also had experience as a artist manager. Now, all of us didn't have the level of experience because when we put out figures for Jesse, like that was independent, and it just broke wide open. Within 48 hours, our emails were flooded with all kinds of CEOs from all over the world, like from the labels. So we never experienced anything like that. Like that was all brand new to us. So we were figuring it out in real time. But prior to, it was just that. That was like, this is somebody that can help communicate things that I can't properly communicate.
I mean, that's very mature of you, especially. And then, I'm assuming your commission was 20%.
Yeah.
Did he come right in at 10 and start getting 10 like from the jump, or did like 5 and then 7 then 10? Like how did it?
Yo, when I need some time off, he's gonna just step in and do the podcast. Like you're gonna do the podcast. Deal? I love it. No, so this is a great question. Yeah, he did. The only thing that I don't think he's gonna mind me saying this, and I think he probably might feel a way about this after the fact, but like it is what it is. We made a lot more money afterwards, so it's fine. But it was 10-10 out the gate, no problem. I didn't have any issues with that. It was for sure understandable. But I negotiated the publishing deal almost like because we did a pub deal with BMG, Zach Cass and Jeremiah Thomas. They were there at the time. And I negotiated it like 85-90% of the way. I doubled the advance of what they wanted to give. I went in super high, to be honest with you. Zach Cass will tell you, like, this guy took more, like, he's like, the advance that we gave for Jesse was less than how many dinners I had to take you out because you just kept asking me with questions, just peppering him with all kinds of questions, and then just raising the price on the advance. I'm like, if you think she's that special, and we didn't have anything to our name, but I was just like, if you think she's that special of a writer, then like, let's see what it is.
Right.
And they gave us a good deal. Like it was at the time it was an MDC, just go through the deal, submit songs, and then recoup, and then just go through the options. But on that specific deal, because I got it so far and negotiated a lot of the terms, I did 15.5.
Got you.
With him, but everything
makes
else,
sense.
Everything else.
I mean,
is 10.
I think I applaud you for, and not to say that's something that I wouldn't do, because I definitely think it's something that I would be mature enough to be open to. It would just have to make a whole lot of sense. And it sounds like you had a relationship with Byron.
Yeah.
It didn't just come out of the blue, and it did make sense. So that's dope. I think a lot of managers wouldn't do that.
No, but so I mean, I remember what's 100% of nothing,
right? Yeah, no, for sure.
That's how I think of it.
Yeah, but again, like I said, a lot of managers, because we're only getting 20%. Because to be honest with you, artists will probably fight me on this, but depending on what your role is, 20% is. We deserve more. We deserve more.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here again because I'm kind of out the game. Like I'm not gonna try to, just since I'm not playing the game anymore. I ain't just gonna mess up the board and walk away. So I'm not gonna. But if you are a really good manager and you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, it's a lot of work, bro.
It is.
It's a lot of work, and to get 20%, I think that keeps a lot of good people out of the industry too. It's like I know that people have the skill set to be killer managers, but they're looking at it and like, I'm smart enough not to do that. I'm gonna go build my own business and do some amazing shit. I'm not doing this.
This is how I look at it. I typically look at it this way. To your point, if you're starting out from anew, you should do a deal where it's 50-50 and there should be some kind of agreement that there's equity in the business. Number one. If you're already in the business and there's a new artist that you're super hyped about and you got a little bit of infrastructure, meaning you have a team, because as a manager that has the experience to go and break a new artist by themselves, it's just not the same.
Right.
It's really hard to have that drive, and any manager with experience will tell you that.
Yeah.
But if it's that, I say maybe, and you have a team, you have all the relationships, this artist just has great artist presence, maybe it's 60-40 for the manager, 50-50, and then if things go up, you change the scales.
I agree with you, and I said why it's so important to learn the business, because no two things are alike. Like there's so many different variables in every situation.
100%.
That you know, you just got to be open to it. You can't just be like, oh, okay, this is standard. Like
Yeah.
every deal is can be so different.
Yeah. And what if the artist actually, that artist is coming in, but they don't have a whole lot of experience, but guess what? They are tapped into an incredible marketing content background. They understand how to mobilize social media like a manager doesn't. So maybe that plays a factor into
Yeah,
things as well, right? Because
for
you never
sure.
know what skill set an artist will have.
For sure.
You know what I mean? To build a business.
For sure.
The only time I think now, to be honest with you, if you're in management and you should take 20%, and I'll probably get crucified by artists for saying this, but I really only think the only time you should take 20% on it and just keep it as commission is if the artist is already generating
rocking.
7 figures.
Yeah, it's rocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they rocking already.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if an artist making 7 figures would give up 20%. Well, I don't know, but I agree with you. It may not. For me, that number might not be 7 figures. It might be at least in the few hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But the concept is still the same.
Right.
Yes, we got to be made. If I'm just gonna come in and make 20, we got to be rocking right out the gate.
Yeah.